Well, it looks like the internet's not very friendly to us tonight, but it's a hearty welcome to all our viewers. Tonight we have a very special program. As you can see, the two people behind me on the screen is Ewald and Manota van Bergen. I don't think in motorsport terms they need any introduction at all. He was the first South African rally champion driver, and together with his wife, they would win that in 1970 for the fourth time. The other element of these two is the fact that they are Nissan people or Datsun people. And I would like to get Clint Dingeveld, my co-host, on screen as well.
Good evening, Patrick. Good evening to the audience.
Exciting times tonight. We've been trying to keep this a secret for so long now. It's just not possible any longer. But it's the nice thing about it is even our guests, Ewald and Manota van Bergen, are not aware of what we're trying to do here tonight.
Yeah, no, so I'm definitely looking forward to see their faces on the surprise, and definitely looking forward to interact with everybody that you bring onto the show tonight. It's for me personally, it's a great honor to be talking to them, and obviously a huge enjoyment to have the discussion with them tonight. So until no further ado, Patrick, the floor is yours. I think we can bring them in because for the past few weeks, I know you've been waiting for this moment.
Well, there they are. Good evening to Ewald and Manota van Bergen. Fantastic to have you with us on the program tonight.
Hi, Patrick.
Hello there.
Now, the two of you are under the impression that we want to interview you tonight. That's not quite the truth. Claire has been very good to us in the background in trying to keep this a secret with us. What is indeed going to happen tonight is we have a few guests that's been invited. Well, we didn't invite them. They almost volunteered to be on the show because you have the same meaning to them as you have to us. So Byron's going to be a busy man tonight, as we have a few people from Portugal that want to chat to you. I think I'm going to have Roo come on. Roo Bevelakwa. I hope I pronounced that correctly. You can step my toes for that. Good evening, Roo.
Good evening. Good evening to all. And I'm very, very proud to be part of this tribute to the Van Bergen. So I'm very happy. Thank you for it.
Well, Roo, I'm going to give it to you. You've got the floor for a few minutes to tell us. We are fortunate to know that they achieved some marvelous results in Portugal. But you experienced it, and you're actually driving a replica of the very car that they used to have these achievements in Portugal. So from your perspective, were they as good as we are told they were?
I didn't understand the final question, but I think the idea is, the Datsun are very, the SSS are very famous in Portugal, especially because of this couple. They did excellent rallies. They won the Tour of Portugal, which is one of the most difficult, and they contribute a lot to selling those cars and to make this car one of the most important to rally at the time.
Did you ever have any direct connection with them? Did they compete in your era, or was it an interest from your side to just build a car based on their achievements?
Well, I was born in 50, so when they were there in 68, 69, I was dreaming to rally too. I did my first rally in 70, so this was a car that marked me and my generation a lot. I always did events, rally races, and so on. And 12 years ago, as I don't like the the actual historic rallies, because they are just 3 hours in the morning, then 2 hours for lunch, then 3 hours and no night driving, and very short rallies. So the only rally that is I wanted to enter was the historic rally of Portugal, which, as you both know, it's a tribute also to the old TAP rally and to the Port Wine rally, and it was 2,000 kilometers in 3.5 days, with night driving, and so hard as the old rallies. So I built the car specifically to do those rallies, which I did for 12 years. And in all my cars, I always wanted to create the same colors, the same replica of the period cars. So I just remember I bought in eBay a small Datsun just to fix the right color. And then I built the car exactly as I remembered them to rally.
Well, of course, when you go rallying, you do need a navigator. So for Ewald and Minota, we have another surprise, because we have that navigator on air as well tonight in Manuel Romao. So,
yes.
well, it seems like he's not on screen yet, but I trust that you will be enjoying speaking to all these people. We are just introducing them quickly to you, and I hope it brings back a few fond memories, Minota.
Yeah. We have some people saying hello here to you also, that's watching. We have a big shout out from Patricia Honenberg. She's saying good evening, sis. And then also we have Eva Marie saying hello also. So everybody's watching tonight.
And Eve is from Austria.
Seems like a few. There, we've got Manuel coming on screen now.
There's
Manuel, you were the import.
Hello.
You were the importer or MD of the importers of Datsun in the era when these two people were having great achievements in your country. Please give us your perspective of that time when the Van Bergens dominated in Portugal.
Okay, nice to see you. Nice to see you, both of you.
Lovely to see you too.
We are talking stories 50 years ago. It's quite a long time, 50 years ago. At the time, I was only 22, and I was not yet working for Entreposto Group. Entreposto Group was the importer of Datsun in Portugal. And as in South Africa, we were the owners of a factory, assembling majority of passenger cars and light commercial vehicles in Portugal. So when the Van Bergen couple came first time to Portugal in 70, Datsun was very, very strong in Portugal. It was the most important brand in our market. And Entreposto was giving a lot of attention to competition, rallies and races. So the win in Volta a Portugal of the Van Bergen couple was a stunning event in Portugal, with first page on most important newspapers and so on. So majority of people still remember, old people of course, still remember that achievement. And later on in 70, they came twice to Portugal, and at the time were very, very popular.
Manuel, you have had the privilege to navigate in the car that Rue had built as a replica to this car. And if I'm correct, please correct me now, but the video clip that you sent, the special stage that they completed in that car was exactly the same in 1970 as to when they won the event.
I won't say exactly the same, but very, very similar for sure. Was at the end of the rally, basically in the most important part of Lisbon, attended by thousands of people, as you can see in some newspapers that Rui Bevilacqua was sent to you. So Entreposto people were at the time very, very happy with this achievement. And it brings us a lot of sales, of course.
Did you ever get the commission, Ewald?
No, I don't think we did.
Well,
Good luck.
That was a quick introduction to our guests in Portugal. There's another person in the background that actually grew up as a child in front of you that you might enjoy saying a few words to as well. But let's get him on air now. Welcome to Sarel van der Merwe.
Hallo, Walter.
Hi, Sarel. Lovely
Sarel.
to see you.
Lovely seeing you again.
It's good to see you too. Not a day older.
Not from my side.
Sarel, jy het nou al vir ons 'n paar keer hierdie storie vertel, maar dit is lekker om dit nou op die lig te kry. Terwille van ons luisteraars oor see, dink ek moet ons maar in Engels by eerder aanhou. But you always told the story that when you started off in rallying, the man to beat was Jan Hettema. So to a certain degree, he sort of became the goal for you to challenge. And on the other side of it, you had some interesting run-ins with this man, Ewald van Bergen, as manager of Nissan Motorsport. Would you care to tell us, put us in the picture on a little bit on both sides?
Well, for starters, I think if Ewald hadn't retired early, he would have been the target, not Jan Hettema, because I think he was better than Jan. And I grew up as a child. My father and Ewald were friends, and I knew him from a very early age. And then I started marshalling on rallies, and he was always a guy that really impressed me because he was just so much better than anybody else in the field, and more spectacular as well, which of course at a young age, that is what you go for. But, that's not all. I ended up eventually driving. Ewald actually got me into professional driving. I was working at Datsun at the time, and then I became the accountant for his department, the motorsport department. And I was rallying my own Datsun. And eventually he gave me a standard car, which I managed to win a national championship rally with. And I thought he's going to promote me to the modified cars, but he made me drive that car for another year. And where I'm sitting now today, I know exactly why I did it, because I needed to learn some manners and be self-driving vehicles and all the rest of it. And eventually put me in the top cars, and I became team leader for him in his teams. But it goes way beyond that, because he was not only my hero, but he was also very clever, and he gave me so many good ideas and told me about what to do, when and where and why. And to this day, I dedicate a lot of my experience to what I learned from Ewald van Bergen. And of course, the Minota, I got to know her at the same time. And what a wonderful couple. I visited their house, and we had some wonderful times together. And Ewald will always be my motorsport hero, regardless of where I raced with overseas and all the rest of it, because he's the guy that put me on the map. And not only that, all the advice he gave me and getting me back to earth every now and again when I thought I was superstar. But he was. Another thing about Ewald, there's no grey areas in his life. Things are either white or black. You either do it right or you don't do it at all. But he taught me a lot of things, like sometimes you have to come third or fourth, because there's no other ideas, and you mustn't try and win everything if it's impossible to do so. So the couple of, it's my heroes, and it's fantastic to see them tonight again. We haven't seen them for a while. But you look well. Yeah, well, you still look full of shit. I'm sure you can still handle that. But thank you. It's wonderful seeing you guys again. Nota. You're still as gorgeous as you were in those days. And all the best for you guys.
Thanks, Sarel. That's lovely.
Well, it's fantastic to hear one legend compliment other legends in such a complete manner. Sarel, we'd love to have you stay in the background. We're going to return to you soon again. But I need to touch on another subject, and that is that takes us to the Franschhoek Motor Museum. We've got the curator, Wayne Harley, in the background. He'll come onto screen now. And there's a very good reason why Wayne is on here tonight, because he looks after some serious trophies. And he's also now representing, well, not representing, he's the chairman of the Legends Association. And, well, Wayne, I'm going to let you elaborate on that, because these two people are definitely worthy of being part of that association.
Good evening, Minette, and good evening, Evelt. How are you? It's been a while since we last spoke. It's good to see you.
Never mind. Good to see you, Wayne.
Yeah, what an honor to be included in this honor to you guys. It's been a long journey. I still remember visiting you guys out in Langebaan for the very first time and going through your home, which you so kindly invited me to look at all the trophies and the rally gear that you guys had made. Very, very fond memories. And like I said, like Patrick said, you know, a lot of water has flown under the bridge. You know, we are now officially the home of not only your trophies, but the entire Legends, and it's the Legends Trust. The South African Motorsport Legends Trust is now situated at the Franschhoek Motor Museum. And I remember very, very fondly as well that yourself, Sarel, Mr. Rupert, I'm trying to think of all the other guests, Ian Schechter. There were so many around that table that day when we actually unveiled your trophies and inaugurated the archive to the Legends Trust at the Franschhoek Motor Museum. And you were our guests of honors. I've got a very, very lovely photo of everyone standing outside on the steps still, that you guys were there. And it's great to think that because of your donation of your trophies, that the Legends Trust now has a home for all their archives. So again, you know, you've made your mark on South African motorsport by donating to the Franschhoek Motor Museum, and we're very, very honored to have your stuff with us.
Thanks, Wayne. We're really thrilled that all those cups found a good home.
And I mean, we have people who come to visit specifically to come and review them, and you know, they are on demand to be viewed, and you know, we often have people coming in just to see the racing trophies of yourselves and the other great legends, which are now stored in that room.
That's nice to know.
Well, I would like to butt in again. Ewald and Minota, when you rallied, it was very much like a privateer setup. There was no works team element of having a service crew follow you around. You pretty much did things by yourself. You almost achieved the impossible because you were rallying when most people didn't even know such a sport existed. You ended up in Monaco, you ended up in Mozambique, in Angola, of all places you did rallies. You were all over the show and you achieved marvelous results. And you always represent that privateer aspect in the sport to me. I think it must have been, well, I consider you the pioneers of the sport. And that era will never be repeated. It can never be repeated. And only a handful of people experience that the way you two did. So there's one man in the background that I feel also lived that a little bit in his life. He's the most successful South African privateer rallyist, and he did most of that also. Well, he shared it between two manufacturers, but he did start off in Datsun. So I'd love to call on Tony Ball to come on screen.
Oh, Tony.
Hello, Minota. Hello, Ewald.
Tony.
Hello, Tony.
Hello. Lovely to see you again. You remember I popped in to visit you in October 2019. We and you shared all your scrapbooks with me and your experiences, and we had a lovely day. There was lots of wine, lots of chatting, lots of memories. It was fantastic.
We must do it again someday.
Well, I'd like to remind you of a little incident which I remembered so clearly. You may remember at the time that Datsun did an advertisement on an old truck engine that was mounted on a farm running a water pump from a dam. And they used it in an advertisement, but the ad agency was a little bit lazy and they didn't go to the farm. They just took a Datsun overhead cam motor and put it in the advert. And I noticed that the engine wasn't quite right according to the script. And I remember phoning you, Ewout, and saying, there's something wrong with the engine. That's not a pushrod overhead valve engine from a 1964 Datsun. That was an overhead cam motor. And you took it up to the ad agency. I don't know if you remember it, but anyway, you told them to go and take the picture of the right engine at the right farm at the right dam. Anyway, that is a story that I never forgot.
I do recall that story.
But I also do remember that when I was 21 years old and I had a Datsun GX and I wrote you a letter asking about what competition parts were available, you took the trouble to respond to me that a gearbox was so much and this was so, and the limited slip diff. You actually took the trouble to speak to some little young privateer from Natal. And that almost like started the relationship. And when you were running Datsun, it was just, the whole thing was to help the privateers. And that's a legacy that you left behind for all of us privateers. Look after the privateer and encourage them to rally. There's hundreds of us out there.
What a nice thing to say. Thanks, Tony.
Thanks, Tony. You don't have privateers, you don't have rally.
Exactly. Absolutely, exactly. And Minota, I just want to point out to people that on your overall, you had a badge that said Natal Rally Club. Now, that's also close to my heart because I'm obviously KZN person, and Natal Rally Club was one of the pioneers of rallying in this province. So I noticed that when I was down with you, that you wore that badge year in, year out on your overall.
That's because the Pretoria Motor Club wouldn't let women enter.
Things have changed a bit since then, I think.
Okay, well, too bad for them. I never joined.
Fantastic.
Tony, I must add that after so many years of doing many cars, you have decided to return to the Datsun Nissan League again.
Yes, Patrick, that's correct. I've been building a 180U Triple S, a sort of replica of the car that won the 73 total. And I'm happy to report that 4 days ago, I started the car and it's crisp as anything. And there is no substitute for Weber side draft carburetors. You can bring all your fuel injection, but there's no sound like that carburetor. So I'm very happy. It started nicely, lots of oil pressure. So I'm going to be driving it in about 10 days' time.
Well, that's going to be. Well, let's introduce another one of the guests in the background, and he's another multiple South African champion. I do believe he never had any direct and business with you as such during his period at Nissan, but he certainly knows about the Van Bergens, and it's a warm welcome to Hannes Grobler as well. Now, Byron must just get him on screen for us.
Unfortunately, Patrick, I don't see him with us at the moment, so sorry for scaring everybody with my face. I will see if we can try and get him on. So what happens is maybe we can move on to one of our next guests.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the next man that we would like to call on screen is somebody that's done something extremely special in my book. We had the privilege to get together with Ewout and Minota at the Kalani racetrack some time ago. There has been some progress in the meantime, and Ewout will get a grin on his face when I speak about the Matchbox. And the man responsible for the matchbox is Nick Middelmann. And Nick has got some interesting news about the progress on that little project. A warm welcome to you, Nick Middelmann.
Patrick, how's it, guys? I hope you guys are well. You're looking strong as ever since I last saw you. I feel quite fortunate to be on a program with the other guests here, and feel a bit lightweight by comparison. But what I do have the privilege of doing is I've got the car that I think sort of started it all. I'm going to try to share a screen here just to give the other guys a feeling for what it looks like. So I'm not sure if that'll come up, but let's just give it a bash. Are you winning there or not? Can you see that one or not?
No, at this stage, nothing's happening, Nick.
Yeah. I'll just give it one more chance and see.
No,
is that coming up?
No,
okay, I'll stop it anyway. So the long and the short is about 15 years ago, I managed to pick up this car, which was a 1936 BMW 3192. And I didn't really know much about the history at the time. I was told and got a big fat file that had the history of what Ewald had done, particularly in finding parts, and a whole lot of racing history of the car. And that's, I suppose, where I learned a bit about Ewald. I decided, well, some guy called Ewald had turned this thing into a race car somewhere in the 50s. So it was 20 years down the line when he found it. Our family, we've been buggering around with vintage cars most of our lives and have typically sort of fixed them up to original spec. But there was something pretty special, particularly around the size of the supercharger that was bolted to the side of this thing, that made me say, well, I've got to make this back into the race car that Ewald created at the time, and I suppose that he started racing around in. Separately, I was messing around on Gumtree one day, and there was this guy called Ewald who was selling his tools out of Langebaan. And I thought it can't possibly be. So I got on the phone to him, and I said, listen, I think I might have your car. So I suppose that's where it started. And that was probably about 5 or 6 years ago that we first met. Meanwhile, I'd stripped the car down completely. It was completely rusted. The body was completely messed. Basically, it needed to be cut completely apart. New wooden ash frame created, welded back together. The chassis was taken down to every nut and bolt. And I took the car up for Minota and Ewald to have a look at on a trailer probably about 5 years ago, something like that. And it was really just a running chassis with the engine on top of it. The body hadn't been done at that stage. And we spent quite a lot of time talking about what he had done. Supercharger is the obvious one, but there were a whole lot of other things. It had Elfin brakes on it, hydraulic shocks on the back. To try and make it go a bit faster. He did tell the story of the fact that he thinks it was so quick because he could never stop it. But I think you'll probably elaborate on that a little bit. And the other part, which I think a couple of other guys have touched on, is just technically, obviously, completely on top of his game. We walked around outside, and the supercharger drive belts were slightly offset. And he looked at this straight away and he said, I would not have done that. It should be straight. And it turns out that the way that there's a transverse spring on the front of that car, and I'd installed it with the bolts from the front and the nuts on the back, and that meant that the pulley had to go in a certain way on the front of the engine, which is a pulley, by the way, that he designed. And that's sort of how it seemed like it was the right way to put it on. But after he told me that, I realized that the bolt had to go in from the back of the car towards the front because it was a narrow head, which allowed a spacer to go on the pulley, and then the pulley belts would run straight. So I think, I think, was it Sarel that said that there was a black and a white? It's right or wrong. I think that's quite So where we are now is the car, the body's done since I think you saw it. It's got windows, it's got electrics. It's got brakes. It's got the self-lubricating chassis. Installation is in. I need to do some very minor electrics around lights. The engine runs. I haven't put exhaust on. It sounds pretty lacquer, I must say. I hope to have it at least driving up and down on the road outside my house fairly soon. One of the benefits, strangely enough, of the rules of the road is that the car has been under an S license all these years. So I can literally put it on the road without a roadworthy and be 100% legal. So look, I've had great fun reading all the files many times. I've got some great pictures. Pity that I can't share them here. But of the car racing at its time, again with some of the trophies, which I'm sure are sitting with me in the museum. But yeah, I look forward to having it on there and bringing it up to you guys, and so you can go for a spin.
Well,
promises.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, Manota, you can't make that statement. He's already brought it to Kalani once, and we've had a little bit of a discussion, and we intend doing that again. So I trust Ewald is back at the gym getting ready for the drive around Kalani.
There's Hannes.
Hannes. Hello, Hannes.
Hello, Moneta. Hello, Ewald.
How are you?
Well, yourself, man. Nice seeing you.
Good to see you too.
Haven't seen you for quite a couple of years, Hannes.
Hey, man. I didn't. The rally helmet didn't press him together with my head. Yeah, Ewald at Nissan. Ewald is quite a bit before my time. Before I started rallying, I remember one evening how I got introduced to the rallies, and I started to recognize Ewald and Datsun at that stage. And one evening we were staying on a farm near Rustenburg, and they had a rally over Manarand. I think Ewald know the stage, and they had regularities, and they were going flat out in the middle of the night over the mountain. I was lying in my bed, and I thought somebody wanted to commit suicide there because I never watched the rally. And in the middle of the night, we went out and went to go and see what's going on there in the gravel road. And it was all the rally cars. That's how I got introduced, and I started knowing about Ewald. Ewald at Nissan, the people at Datsun at that time had a lot of respect for Ewald. And as Sarel said, it's all black, all white. It's some guys didn't like it that much, but it let me think about myself as well, and that's the only way to do it. It's all black or white, and you have to do it properly. And I don't know if a lot of guys know that Ewald, I think it's in the 64 when he rallied that Bluebird, what we called it. That thing had a 3-speed gearbox, and the guys at Datsun told me when I started rallying there that he made the gearbox a 4-speed. And Ewald they can correct me. He made it a 4-speed box to rally with, And I think Ewald was. We rallied all the Skylines, and we had great times with the Skylines. But I think Ewald was also the first guy in South Africa that ever had a Skyline here. And I believe from the Datsun guys at that time, he built it out of spares. Is that correct?
Don't think so. I think that's a tall story.
Okay, but I believe that car is somewhere. I think the guy in Botawillis got it. But Ewald was an example for my rallying, and I must say I always looked up to Ewald and what he did. And we had a short time at Nissan, that's a Nissan together, and the talking at Nissan, they had a lot of respect for him.
Well,
That's nice to hear, Hannes. Thanks a lot for that.
Thank you for the compliments.
Pleasure.
well, now I think it's about time that the two of you say something now. We can't just listen to the guest all night. I would love you to just touch on a little bit of how the two of you got together in motorsport. Because, well, you started off pretty much the man on a mission. You did, as Hannes said, you showed the Japanese that you could put 4-speed gearboxes into the Bluebird. You ended up in Monaco. One story in particular that I enjoy is and I don't think anybody today has any appreciation for the endurance of those events, the amount of time you had to actually stay awake behind the wheel. If you don't mind, would you take us to Monaco and the event where you ended up falling asleep after hitting a bridge?
Oh, that was your first Monty, 1963. That was 1963.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
And you drove for something like 36 hours.
Yeah.
Which understood, yes, well, you tell the story.
I think I need to know what details you're looking for.
Just how many hours you drove it.
For how many hours I drove.
It must have been 36.
It was damn near 40 hours and non-stop. And I was absolutely knackered. When I finally hit the bridge, I was satisfied that I would not be driving another 50. And the car was fairly mangled, and I was so tired, I actually leaned on the steering wheel and went to sleep. And I woke up when one of the local farmers was trying to rescue the people who were in this motor car. Look, it was a long time ago, and the details are not fresh in my mind, but it was tough going.
Yeah.
Compared to the modern era of rallying, if you had that choice today, would you want to do it the modern way, or would you prefer it the traditional way, if I could put it that way?
I think you can answer that one.
I think real men did it the traditional way.
Clint, go ahead.
Yeah, so when you did the Monty and the Japanese will pass your car, what kind of reaction did they have when they saw the changes that you've done to the car, and what kind of discussion did they have with you?
Well, they couldn't believe it. The first Japanese who saw the old car, and he was over it and under it and taking photographs.
You know, we're talking about a number of years ago, a vast number of years ago. And,
but you remember that story, the Japanese who spotted the car.
The one who originally discovered us,
Yeah.
we were having the car scrutinized by the officials. And of course, we had to open the bonnet in order for the engine to be checked and this to be checked and the other thing to be checked. And there was well, let's not be too definitive about it, but there was a little Japanese guy with a camera. Nothing at all unusual in France in those days. But his eyes just about came out on stalks when he saw what I had done to this car. Because in my lack of experience with European rallying, I didn't realize that absolutely everything had to be recognized, as they called it,
Homologated.
and homologated, 2,000 identical units having been produced with those parts in it. And I was completely oblivious to this, which I wrote to Japan and I said, have you got what they call form of recognition? And they said yes. So I took them at their word, and in point of fact, what actually happened is that there was nothing. And this was going to be a bit of a problem, but the organizers very, very wisely decided that let the guy start. He knows bugger all about this kind of rallying anyway. He hasn't got a suitable motor car, and he's not going to finish. And they actually let me compete, knowing full well that what was coming up was something that I would never be able to handle. And there it was. So we ended up at the bridge. The car ended up about 2 feet shorter than it started its life with. And we carried on.
And the Japanese went crazy.
And the Japanese were
So I believe after that there was another conversation that they kept on trying to convince you to come and work for them. But there was a list of 22 items that you sent to them to make changes to the particular car. Okay. and again, I know it's many years ago and it's way before my time, but I need to compliment your grandson, Jared, because he's got a blog going on your history and on your book and the legacy of the cars. And it is very, very well done, and compliments to him and to your family for documenting all of it.
That's very kind of you. I'm sure Jared would be thrilled to hear that.
He's a very, very keen Datsun man. Extremely keen Datsun man.
Well, as Clint just said now, you did end up representing Nissan Japan in South Africa in the preparation of vehicles. I consider you the father of the P510 or the 1600 Triple S. Would that be a true assumption or a true statement?
Well, I'm glad to be called the father of the Datsun, but I think that the birth pains must have been quite something. We started off not knowing which side was up. And in South Africa, nobody had ever participated in an international event that required all these specific restrictions to be enforced. And I went like a lamb to slaughter. I didn't know what was coming. And I think that the organizers were very, very clever in saying, let him go. If he pulls something off, we'll fight the other competitors who are protesting. If he doesn't pull it off, nobody will ever know that we let him go. And I did 5 Monte Carlo rallies, but with a singular lack of success. I had, of the 5 attempts that I made, 4 of them ended up with blocked fuel lines, and the car simply stopped. So it was no recommendation on my part as to how well the cars had been prepared in Japan, or the one that I did in South Africa myself. Everything has got a learning curve, but it's very, very seldom that it approaches 98 degrees.
I would like to ask you, where did your fascination about oil come in? And especially Castrol oil, because there's a story behind this also. We tore up some sponsorship.
Castrol oil.
Are you talking about Castrol oil?
Yes.
Well, that was a private fight. We were allowed to draw, people who signed a sponsorship deal were allowed to draw a gallon of oil for every competition that you entered. And as far as I was concerned, that was it. You did what you liked. You advertised your face and your name and your product, and so you went. But in this particular instance,
it was a total rally.
I don't know what event it was. I can't remember. You know, we've done several hundred rallies, and it's hard to remember each specific one.
Total were very annoyed because it was the total rally, and we had Castrol advertising on the car, and that was non-you. It ended up that Castrol sponsored Evelt, and Evelt was like the face of Castrol GTX, So peace was made between Castrol and Ewald. And we always used Castrol in all our cars, even on the Total Rally.
Even when they were objecting to us, we used their product, but we wouldn't allow them to advertise it. And that hurt. That really hurt.
No, that's good.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah, yes, to a certain extent, because from one engineer to another, I believe that you've done some research on the engines also. When you came into South Africa, you used to put in oil, you put on some mileage, and then drive it, strip it down, and then check it again. What was the thinking behind that? Was it just a fascination? Was it a hobby? Or was it really something to prove in terms of how to build a rally engine?
I think it started as a hobby, but once Ewald was in the employ of Nissan Japan, it became a question of doing research on the cars to see what worked and what didn't. And can I revert to something for a moment? Ewald was just talking about hitting the bridge after 40 hours of driving. And there's just been a message on screen from our son in London who has the front bumper that hit that bridge, and it's still got a sort of U shape in the middle, and he has it in his house in London.
I'll post the photograph I've got of the two of you sitting with that grill in Langebaan at that time.
You got it. Well, it's now, he tucked it under his arm and he flew back to London with it, and it's living in London.
You don't have to be crazy, but it helps.
Well, take us back to the era of when you started off in rallying. I would still like to know, at that time, rallying was almost an unheard of sport. So where did your interest develop in the sport? Now I'm really taking you back many, many moons. But surely you must remember what triggered you in the sport. Why did you go rallying? Or I know you started off with a BMW with a matchbox in racing, but where did the switch come to rallying?
I can tell you. The first rally that he did, proper rally, this is before my time. I was a child still.
Advertising.
Yeah, advertising. The first rally that he did, he came second overall. And he decided that was the sport for him. And that's how it started.
Sad but true. Sad but true.
We've already mentioned you went to Canada not just for rallying. You went there because of a certain lady next to you.
No. That's wrong. We met in Monte Carlo.
Oh,
okay.
Totally by accident. It involved my father. It involved my father's car. And he said, I was with him, and he said, oh, there are those South Africans I met who were driving that funny Japanese car. He said, I'll introduce you to them. And I thought, well, I'm not really interested, but never mind. Anyway, we took one look at one another, were rude to each other, and I don't know, 54 years later, we're still married, so something went right.
Good clue.
You went to many continents, and I would love to touch on the event you did in Canada. Can you take us to how did you end up going to so many continents? In those days, you weren't competing in the World Championship as such, yet everywhere you go, you read and hear about Ewald van Bergen having rallied there.
Ewald went to Canada in 1968 to do the Shell 4000 rally at the invitation of Nissan Canada, who were putting 3 cars in the event. They had the Canadian rally champion. They had another excellent driver from Canada. And they asked Ewald to come from Canada and supervise the construction of the rally cars and then take part in the Shell 4000. I stayed at home. In fact, we weren't even rallying together then. It was early days, and I stayed at home because we were busy building a house, and somebody had to keep an eye on the builders. So I stayed at home and watched the builders, and he drove across Canada.
A mere 5,500 miles.
Yeah.
Well, that's the car behind me.
It's over your shoulder there. Yep.
Yeah.
Up, that's it. That bend over your shoulder. That was a scary thing. That was my first whoops. We were doing at that stage just a little over 110 miles an hour, and I misread the road through the trees. And if you analyze the photograph and you see where the wheels are pointing and where the road was before, it was very, very hairy. But we managed to get through it. I sort of cemented my reputation in Canada when we got through that particular bend, because it was very, very hairy.
There must have been many a hairy moment in your career, but something I would love to touch on, and that's with Sarel in the background. He can add to this by coming onto screen again. You were the first South African rally driver champion, but it's in an era when there was another Sarel van der Merwe around, and that's not Supervan and I. It's the senior part of Sarel van der Merwe that were also competing in motorsport at the time, and I believe that. Sarel, jy kan ons meer op hoogte bring van jou pa se kant af.
No, I think he won it in 59. I mean, it wasn't a national champion. It was organized by the Pretoria Motorsport Club. So he won the championship that year, and the following year it became a national championship, and he won quite a lot of them, and he should have won more because he retired early, like I said earlier. But in fact, the year that he retired, he was leading the championship, and he retired, I think if you should retire in September and have only 3 rallies left, and you were leading the championship, and then you retired and Hetema won the championship. So you should actually have won 5 and he should have won 4, not the other way around. So, that's correct, isn't it?
Yeah, but who's counting at this stage?
No, I'm always counting.
And every morning I look into the mirror when I'm busy shaving and I wonder why the hell I'm still standing up.
The reason...
No, I mean, you, like I said earlier, as a marshal on the rallies, you stand on the corner and you come through and Hetema comes through, and there's a marked difference. And you should have been the target and not Jan. And I really think you could easily have, for sure you would have won that championship as well. And
do you think it's too late to try again?
I usually start the rally for old people. I also qualify for that now, Lady.
Yeah.
But talking about a bit earlier, you were talking about the difference between rallies then and rallies now. I think when we were rallying in blind rallies, the driver navigator was probably worth about 70% of the package. And nowadays, where they only do 3 stages and they practice it and they do the same 3 stages in the other direction, I don't think the driver combination is worth more than 50%. So rallying in those days with the pre-base notes was actually a lot more dependent on team performance than car performance. I think you'll agree with me on that.
Yeah, I can remember having to leap out of the car and open farm gates and close them, and yeah, it was a bit wild and woolly sometimes.
It was, and also the events were a lot longer. like you're talking about the overseas things, but even the Casserole rally used to be 4 days long. And the total rally before my time, I only did one. I finished fourth, thanks to you, in the standard car. But that also was a break in my life. But I mean, it was a difficult 4 days, 3 day, 4 day rallies are a lot more difficult than the half an hour jobs they do nowadays. I think rallying today is not really bad.
Patrick, I see we have a nice message here from Claire.
I want to interrupt that, and Claire has put on a message here, which I think is very, very special. For the benefit of the viewers, Claire is the daughter, and Claire states that I think I can speak on behalf of all the Van Bergen children and grandchildren tonight when I say we are extremely proud of both of you. So glad that after all these years, your legacy still lives on.
Wonderful people to have known.
Well,
I tell you something, Sarel, you still remain my best pupil.
And I've always appreciated your sixth sense of humor. That was always wonderful.
I'm going to be a bit of a stirrer here, but I want to hear the story. Sarel, you always said, well, you just stated that you consider Ewald that should have been the target, but Jan was the target. But a little incident that happened in Ewald's office, and I don't mean this in a sarcastic way or anything, but he's the only manager that can actually say that he showed you the door. Is that true?
Actually, Datsun was quite. They were way ahead in that. I was fired by Datsun 3 times. Twice by Ewald, before him. Like I said, he's got no grey areas.
I think it's a case of giving appreciation where appreciation is due. Because, no, I'm serious about that because, I'm not the easiest person in the world. And Sarel van der Merwe isn't the easiest person in the world. He's full of himself. I'm full of myself within competition. Because if you haven't got a competitive spirit, then why the hell rally? And we got on extremely well. We used to have our jokes and our laughters. And I was a pace car at one stage, and I went sideways into an entrance into a quarry and then sat around the corner and watched him come along following my tracks. And he had to go all the bloody way to the bottom and come all the way back up again. And he said, "You bastard, I know you did that deliberately." We've always got on extremely well.
I'm thinking about when Sarel won his first national rally. We had a dinner party at a very nice little restaurant called Toyings in Pretoria. And it was for Sarel and his co-driver and the two of us and the motorsport team. And we left that restaurant stagger drunk in the middle of the night. We never even paid the bill. Even the owner just said to us, "Go home, go home." I think that's one of the best rally parties we ever had.
Now, with the role models like that, I couldn't have grown up anywhere else. I mean, thanks for the wonderful times, the two of you. We've had some very good times together.
Okay, it's time you came to see us.
We will do so.
Yeah, you're just around the corner.
Well, I could make a suggestion that there's something about a Southern Sun Ford Escort doing the rounds again, and Sarel's looking for an excuse to go and play with it again.
Okay.
I've restored that old Southern Sun car that I found.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. And I'll be showing it at Swartkops on the 18th of June, and then I'm bringing it down here. So I will get you guys to come look at it.
Okay.
This was the first time I had a full drive. So
Either that or you bring it to us and you can practice on the estate here.
it costs too much. I'm not going to drive it around. I'm too scared. I'm going to start doing wheelies in the main street or donuts. I know myself. What I actually want to do with it, I'm going to put it in my trophy room. But Danielle thinks it's a crappy idea. So I'm going to send her on a 3-week road trip, and when she comes back, it'll be stacked.
You can see that we led irresponsible lives, can't you, Patrick?
I'm not saying a word. I'm jealous of the era that you experienced, and even Sarel in his early days. Being naughty is part of it. You both, well, all of you survived it, so it couldn't have been too bad. And I think that you have a unique, you filled a unique gap in the sport. I'm jealous in the sense that you were so rare that almost nobody knew about it. I'm 60 years old and I'm only learning about Ewald and Minota van Bergen as I go along now. And you guys,
we get on because we both think being sensible is boring.
Yeah, we've already. Patrick was talking about being naughty. We were out misbehaving somewhere on the roads one night, and when we came home, there was a police car parked in our driveway, saying, "We know it was you." But they couldn't catch us.
That takes me back to rally. One year, we just sorry.
No, I said one day when you started your Nissan, the GTR, you said I must come and have a drink at your house, and I was in my Triple S, and you were going flat out, and I tried to follow you. And I said, when we stopped, I said, "Why the hell are you driving like a lunatic?" You said, "I wanted to see how you react." You remember that?
Yeah.
Coming around Hillcrest swimming pool, sideways.
Not particularly, but of course I used to take the mickey out of you whenever I possibly could because you had a good sense of humor. But one occasion I do remember is on the Beira rally, which we won at that stage, but we decided that it would be good to steal the banner and take it back to Pretoria. And we then proceeded to climb the trees, cut the banner down, roll it up, stick it into the car, and oops, there came a Mercedes with no doors on it. This is a riot vehicle. And they were after us, but it was a diesel, so there was no problem in getting ahead of it. And we took off and just left this guy in a cloud of bloody dust and tore around Beira and decided that this is it. We better stop this now. This cop's going to get really teed off with us. And we headed back to the hotel where we were which was a sort of a
motel.
It was a sort of a motel type of arrangement, where single story. And we got to our accommodation, and everybody around there was sitting there saying nothing at all, but sort of not looking terribly happy. And we opened up the door of our room, switched on the light, and there were 3 cops sitting on the bed, one of the beds. And I thought, well, no, this is now going to take a little bit of a problem to sort out. And I didn't know what I was going to do here because, Mozambique is a funny country.
It was.
And I decided, well, just nonchalant, just don't worry about it. And these guys came forward and shook my hand. They were hell of a pleased about the dice. And I thought we were going to spend the night in the cockpit. True story.
After that story, I rest my case.
After that story, I rest my case.
Well, you know what it is. You've got to teach the fuss to have a sense of humor too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sometimes the reaction was a 45 slug, and then man, you all have a very fast motor.
Our children are probably listening with very big eyes to some of this, to say nothing of the grandkids.
They're seeing a side of the family here they never heard of before.
They suspected, but they never had proof.
Were you as naughty in Portugal as well?
Yeah, I think we had quite a lot of fun in Portugal.
I do remember a gentleman with a silver, like a butler, waiting for you in a stage.
Yes.
Could you touch on that subject?
The gentleman was the French manager of a beautiful pousada in the north of Portugal, looking down the mountain to a dam. It was an absolutely lovely place, and we had stayed there, and he knew we were taking part in the Volta a Portugal. So, you know, there were we novices in Portugal, and we said to him, well, when we go past, because the road went right past the driveway of this pousada, when we go past, you'd better have a drink waiting for us.
If we're leading.
If we're leading, you see. As luck would have it, we came down the mountainside and we were leading, and there, standing on the side of the road with his cravat and his suit on and a silver tray and a bottle of brandy and 2 balloon glasses, was waiting for us. I mean, we couldn't just drive past the guy, so we stopped and had a drink. And the car lying behind us was a Porsche 911 driven by the Portuguese rally champion. And we'd been teasing him on the road. And he came past us, took one look at this lot of us having a drink of brandy on the side of the road, and he damn near drove off the mountainside. We eventually ended up in a huge dice with him, and he was 1 minute behind us, and he just pushed too hard and he ran into a rock wall. Shame. Shame.
Yeah, so we won.
Sarel, did he teach you the psychology side of the sport as well? Because Supervan and I are two very different people. And the one used to psych his opponents out of the sport even before they got to the starting grid.
It was the best thing that ever happened to me, because then I could blame somebody else.
But was that something that Ewald also taught you? Because it sounds like he was an expert at it in Portugal.
Oh, yes.
I just told you earlier, that was my role model. You can't blame
Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
Ruan and Manuel, are you still with us in the background?
Yes, sure. Very interesting.
Are you hearing the bad stories, Manuel?
Yes, some of them I understand, but other ones are completely South African stories, so we are not aware.
Were you aware of this dice going on between the Porsche and the Nissan or Datsun at the time?
No.
That was in the 1969 Volta a Portugal, and the driver of the Porsche was Amerigo Nunes.
Yes. I know him quite well. Already dead, unfortunately.
Yes, we know that. I'm sorry that we never got to meet him again, but we played a big game with him.
I see. But I can tell you a story that Mr. Manuel Gião was the sales manager of Entreposto. He told me
Manuel very well.
Yeah, he told me later on that on the last day of Volta, I'm not sure if it was 69 or 70, your car ran out of alternator.
Yes.
So during the last day of Volta, he went to an Entreposto car park of Bluebird 510 and collects about 10 batteries from new cars, put in the booth of his car, and have done all the service points at the end of Forest Road, changing batteries until the end of the rally. Because the battery was only available for 100 kilometers, not more than that.
Yeah, I remember that. Manuel was determined that we were going to win, even if it took all those batteries. Oh dear.
That was a very interesting problem in there. There was a short circuit inside the amp meter on the dashboard, which meant that we couldn't see it, we couldn't measure it. It was simply a short circuit, and the alternator was charging it into the chassis, which didn't particularly help the battery. But that's something for the Portuguese guys, if you wish to let them know that that was a primary problem. It had an internal short in the amp meter. Never heard of it before.
Yeah, and what was interesting for us at the time, I was a motorsport journalist. It was because in Portugal there was no L18 or U20 engines, only L16. So your car, your 510 Bluebird, was much quicker than the cars we have in Portugal at the time, and with the U20 engine, even more. So Mr. Megre later on decided to order from Japan some U20 engines in order to get the 510 more competitive. And I was co-driver of one of those cars, but with L16 engine, quite good with Safari suspension and so on. But what made us in Portugal more troubled was how a South African driver used to drive on forest roads was able to drive in snow in Monte Carlo with 240Z and two Bluebird 410. It was a very weak car, and we couldn't understand how you were able to be so able to drive in all type of those tarmac roads and all weather conditions. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Well, about Minoto was telling about Americ Nunes and your brandy story. I do remember that Americ was also using special moods to win rallies. So in one Volta à Madeira tour, there was a religious event, and all the road was full of cars everywhere, and he couldn't pass. So everybody was stopped, and the American remembered to put his navigator with waving and with the handkerchief out of the car, saying he needed to go to the hospital. So everybody was opening the road, and he was the only one passing that road, and he won the rally.
You see, he learned those things from us because we teased him so much on that Volta. It's too long a story to tell now, but we knew he was right behind us. And that he had the Porsche, he had more power. So we teased him.
Yeah.
That was a very, very, very funny rally.
Oh dear. We need to come to Portugal and visit. so we can talk
yes.
about all these stories.
Absolutely.
please.
And visit the Pousada de Marão, which is the one you spoke about.
Yes.
Pousada de Marão. And the also many places where you can stay again, because luckily they still exist.
Oh, that's lovely. I'd like to go there again. We were very happy there. There were lovely people, and the view was beautiful. It was very tranquil and lovely.
Yes. Yeah.
Portugal is still the same country. Some things much better and much developed, but other things even worse than 50 years ago. So, if you come, you should see a lot of differences between that country and present country.
Well, I'm sure South Africa is the same.
Yeah, I suppose so. I only went to Mozambique, but never to South Africa. We close to the border with South Africa, but never inside the country.
Oh, that's a pity.
A question I would like to ask, if you look at the picture behind on top, with where you were zero car for the event in the Datsun, were people actually aware of the fact that that car was a replica of the car that the Van Bergens used, or did it run almost undercover?
No, you see, your car, your Datsun, also had the same color and decoration of the official Datsuns. So the same red, same stripes. Mechanically, they were very special. But during all the time I drove I rallied that car, it was 12 years. People knew the story. You know, today with internet, with all those media, everybody knows everything. So yes, they were aware. That's why they invited me to be the car zero, together with the Audi Quattro of Stig Blomqvist and Mickey Viazion with his own Lancia Delta. And we were the zero cars. And just to open the Sintra roads by night, which I'm sure Minalta remembers, because it's the most beautiful stages in the world.
It is just a really lovely part of Portugal. But that's because you built that car. That's how we got to talking on the internet.
Oh, yes. And also the swallows that came from South Africa here to my house.
Oh, yes, that's right.
Roy, does the car still exist?
My car?
Yes.
Yeah. It still exists, but last year I wanted to celebrate my 50 years since my first rally, and I decided to exchange the Datsun and go back to circuit racing. So as I don't like selling and buying, I exchanged with a friend, and he had Alfa Romeo Giulia TI Super from '64 that were mine 30 years ago. So we just changed cars. He will do rallies, I will do circuit.
Well, it's great to hear that the car still exists, and hopefully we'll see that out as zero car somewhere in the future again.
Well, I hope so. Just that he has only one seat because it's for racing, but no problem.
Well, gentlemen, we can carry on all night. These two people can keep us talking forever. But I'm going to get told by Ewald that I'm sort of stealing his sleeping time now. But as you said, it's black and white. You're going to get a message sooner rather than later. But we do appreciate you putting up with us tonight. And I would like to give everyone in the background an opportunity, one last round, to say something to these well, to me, you guys are, as I said, pioneers of South African motorsport. You will always be that. And from my point of view, the compliments you were paid tonight are well deserved and just long overdue.
Thanks, Patrick. That's a lovely thing to say.
Thank you.
So let's start off. Let's go to Wayne Harley, if you're still with us. This is your closing opportunity. I'm getting no response from Byron's side. So I think...
All right, there, Patrick. I think we need just to move because we can only have so many folks in the studio at once. I think we can start off maybe with Tony Ball, maybe.
Please do.
Ewald and Venota, I'm absolutely honored to have known you personally and through motorsport, and it's been a huge part of my life to be part of rallying and part of Datsun, and it's treasured memories that they will never go away. It's been fantastic, and I really enjoyed that weekend in 2019 at your place where you made me feel so welcome. And absolute legend, you two in motorsport. I'm so pleased to be on tonight.
Come and
Thank
visit
you.
again.
Yeah,
Thank you very much. Lovely. Go well, hey? And thank you everybody in the studio for the opportunity. I'm getting a bit emotional here. Sorry, but it was lovely. Really lovely.
Well, Balagis, you will have to come and show them that Datsun sometime in the future. So you're going to have to come and do a Cape Town event soon.
I'm actually planning on doing a rally in Nelspruit with a car in June. So that's my schedule.
That's the wrong side of the country. You've got to come down.
No, it's a shakedown. It's a shakedown. Okay. Lovely being on the show. Hey, really, really tremendous.
Great.
Thanks for joining us, Tony. Hannes, as jy nog in die omtrek? Byron, I'm going to have to rely on you. Who's still in the foyer, and you can get us on screen for us.
Just trying to get a few folks back in. I've got Sarel. Maybe just one more word from Sarel. I know we had him
absolutely
just briefly.
Thank you very much for what you've meant in my career and all the wonderful times we've had together. Wonderful seeing you guys again, and we'll come visit soon.
Go well, my friend. Remember what I've always said to you: stay on the island and you'll win.
I did it right most of the time.
Thank you very much, Sarel. Always a pleasure having you on board. And it's obvious the respect between the three of you is amazing to experience tonight. And may you always stay on the island. Then, Byron, who's next?
I think a few of the folks have left. I see that just want to actually just put on the screen over here because Nick Middelmann just told me earlier on about the picture that he put on. There we go. I think that's going to pique a little bit of interest there. A lovely picture.
Yeah, well, please put us in for the benefit of the viewers. Just give us a bit of a background on that car, please.
A little bit of a background. Do you realize what we're talking about here? We are talking about dozens of years. I bought the car in Johannesburg from the guy who brought it and a sports model into South Africa from Germany direct. And I was intrigued by the car and by its design and so forth. And that car taught me an awful lot about what is required and what isn't required, and what's a waste of time and what isn't a waste of time. But when you get involved in preparing your own motor car for a rally, there is nothing at all that you have to do other than every single thing on the vehicle. You've got to check it, because a rally takes only a loose nut, a broken washer, and that's the end of your event for you. So, but you can't do this checking through from front bumper to back bumper every single time you go rallying. So therefore, do the job properly the first time and be done with it. And I was quite happy with what I was doing. And as I say, it was a car that taught me an awful lot. And would you believe that entire chassis weighed only 94 pounds? And it consisted of 2 steel tubes, not circular tubes as such, but profile tubes. And it had 3 cross members. And that whole thing was an absolute work of art. And the reason that I got so involved in motorsport is because the car was such an incredible handling motor car. And the 1936 model, there was no finesse in those days, but it was magic to drive. It really was. And I had more fun in that motor car than I've had in anything else in my life. And I'm very, very pleased to have been a part of it and its development. It was a great motor car. Got me into plenty of trouble too.
Did it come with a supercharger, or was that an Ewald van Bergen edition?
Say again, please.
The supercharger was your edition.
Yeah, the supercharger was my edition. It requires a lot more words than we've got time for to go through the development of that car. But I sweated blood and tears to get what I wanted, and I succeeded in getting what I wanted. And that gave me the satisfaction.
Well,
I
hopefully
used to write off my investments in the car in the form of labor by charging to my car an amount every time I beat something like an XK120 Jaguar and a drag out. And many times I beat them. Okay, fellas, I guess this will just drag on and on and on, as you said earlier on. This can go on all night.
We've got Wayne back on the screen. So, Wayne, in closing.
Sorry, I lost the link somehow, yeah.
We're busy running through everybody for a last round. It's getting late, and I think we should start to trim down the show. So here's your last opportunity.
I've enjoyed listening to all the stories and catching up, and it's been an honor to be a very small part of your lives, and to hope meet you again in person somewhere along the line. And thank you very, very much for everything you've done for South African motorsport and rallying. And we look forward to including you in so many of the Legends Associations and Trusts movements forward. Thank you very, very much again.
Thanks, Wayne.
Thank you very much.
I think it'll just be appropriate to have our Portuguese guests have the final say.
I'm waiting for Rui. Yeah. So thank you very much for the invitation. It was very, very nice to spend this afternoon with you, knowing much more stories about South African motorsport, and also more stories about Minota and you will. Stay COVID free, please. All the best. All the best.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, it was well-deserved tribute to all you have done for the motorsport. And as Manuel said, stay safe and come back to Portugal. Everybody would remind and remember you and welcome you so much.
Please send our regards to all our motorsport friends in Portugal. We have so many happy memories from the times we spent there.
Yes, okay. You are well known here. Everybody knows you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Clint, you can have a real Datsun goodbye.
So yeah, so it's tonight has been a true honor. Thank you to Mr. and Mrs. Van Bergen for joining us in the show. There's three things that comes to mind. I think the first thing is that for Ewald, he was a master of his craft. The second is and I think the couple both was determined, and innovation is comes to mind also. So again, thank you for spending the evening with us, and it's been a true honor, and hopefully it's not the last. Thank you.
Thank you, Clint.
Thank you.
Very kind of you.
And all I can say is I apologize for being a bit of a pain in the butt lately. But I had to find a way to get you onto the screen. And well, I have to thank Claire for all her hard work behind the scenes. I don't know what she told you.
I realize now that Claire was up to something.
But it has been an absolute honor having you on the show tonight. I have huge respect for both of you, and I can only applaud what you've achieved in the sport and be jealous of what you did in your days. I would have loved to have seen you in action in your heyday, but you were winning championships before I was even born. So
how embarrassing.
But once again, compliments and thank you for your time tonight. And we look forward to chatting to you somewhere in the future without having to con you to get onto the show.
Thanks, Patrick. It's very kind of you.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Good night.
Good evening. Ciao.
Thank you, Byron, behind the scenes for all your.
Yes.
I think we kept you busy tonight. And Clint, I don't think we can get much more special than we had tonight.
No, Patrick. So just for the benefit of the audience, tonight was very special, and I think we have more special nights planned. I would like to ask the audience to subscribe to the YouTube channel, like the Witzenberg Motor Club on Facebook, and watch the programs that we will be planning in the future. There's much more to come, and definitely we are hoping to get the Van Bergens back. But yeah, this is some exciting stuff cooking. So keep on watching the show and subscribe.
Thank you, Clint. As always, an honor to have you with me in the show. And Byron, behind the scenes, thank you and good night.